Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to today's event focusing on the benefits of integrating Dynamics 365 CRM with Dynamics 365 Business Central. Today's session is sponsored by Encore Business Solutions, and here representing them is Alfred Selvaraja. So before we get started, I just want to make a quick note. If you have any questions during the session, please type them into the chat box and Alfred will get back to you after the session ends via email. We're also going to be recording the session and it should be available on demand on MSDW shortly after airing. So Alfred, without further delay, I'm just going to turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Adam. Very happy to be here and excited to be doing this webinar. Thanks to everyone who is joining us today. Like Adam said, my name is Alfred Selvaraja. I'm a senior account executive with Encore. Have been with Encore about 3.5 years, but have spent many years in the Dynamics 365 consulting space. So very excited to be talking about integrating Dynamics 365 Business Central with a CRM solution. You will find that a lot of the insights we are sharing today applies to a number of different products, but today's topic will be focused around the Microsoft solutions. So we have a little bit of an agenda we've put together for you today. We will be obviously talking about Business Central and Dynamics 365 CRM, which is Dynamics 365 Sales. These are the two products we'll be talking about. We'll take you through why this integration matters and what we've been hearing from customers about why they are doing these type of integrations and what value it brings. We'll talk about the various business benefits and very specific use cases in terms of how this integration happens and what data is exchanged between these systems, and more importantly, why do folks and organizations engage in this type of integrations and what value does it bring. We will also talk a little bit about how Microsoft approaches these integrations and what value is there when it comes to Microsoft's approach to this integration. We also want to share some best practices in terms of do's and don'ts. We've done this with many customers, and so we want to share some of those insights as well. So that's a little bit about the agenda we have for you today, and we hope you find this content useful. So like I said, the two products primarily that we're talking about today is Dynamics 365 Business Central and Dynamics 365 Sales, which is also Microsoft's enterprise-grade CRM solution. So let's talk a little bit about why the integration matters. We've been implementing Dynamics for many years, and we work with organizations that are experiencing a number of different challenges, and so we are bringing you these insights based on what we are hearing from various customer organizations we've worked with. And so I thought I'll break up a few points in terms of the key challenges that we're hearing from customers. So one classic example is around the siloed data. Just imagine a situation where your sales representative is giving a quote to a customer using last week's prices, while the finance team has updated rates sitting in a totally separate system. It's easy to overpromise or misquote, and even easier for the customer to lose faith if you have to backtrack on price or availability. So really, when you have systems that are having data sitting in two separate systems, there's a lot of potential that we've heard between sales and finance teams. When sales is quoting based on maybe an outdated price list, whereas finance has already updated rates. So this is one of the key things we've been hearing, that there are a lot of room for errors when it comes to pricing information. And the second point, when you talk about manual data entry, we worked with a number of different organizations where they do a lot of this order entry in a really manual way, where you have the sales person closing out a project in the CRM or an order in the CRM, and then someone has to manually sort of enter that data, re-enter that data manually in the finance system. So this has a lot of challenges, when it comes to there's a lot of it's prone to a lot of mistakes. Essentially, you could have shipping delays because someone entered the shipping address wrongly or got the wrong pricing, and so you're going to be billing the wrong amount. So we see a lot of challenges when it comes to just the idea of having to enter and re-enter manual data. One of the other significant challenges is really also around billing delays. We once saw a situation where finance had to wait 2 days for the sales team to email a list of closed deals before they could bill. And this bottleneck really means it means real money in most of the situations. There's thousands of dollars in invoices that can be delayed each week because there is no integration between these systems. So we see a lot of these use cases where the billing needs to be really improved. And so this can result in a lot of delays as well. One of the other points is really almost everything that we are doing when it comes to these integrations is around customer centricity and the ability to have a 360-degree view of a customer. And what does that really mean? We've seen situations where there is a disconnect between sales and the rest of the organization. Imagine a situation where a sales representative is eagerly following up on a new opportunity, not realizing that the customer has an overdue invoice or even a pending support ticket. So without a unified view, it's really hard to treat your customers like valued partners. And so integrating CRM and ERP usually solves that by showing everyone the full picture in real time. And very lastly, one of the other challenges and why this integration matters is the lack of visibility, therefore disabling decision making. Um, every executive team or even middle management needs to have good access to reports, and oftentimes it's a real struggle when you don't have this integrated systems. Exchanging data between each other makes the whole access to reporting and visibility and analytics really challenging at times. So there are a lot more challenges that organizations experience because of the lack of integration between these systems, but these are some of the key areas that we've heard organizations really focusing on and some of the challenges they've been experiencing. So let's talk a little bit about the benefits of this integration. The very first point is the unified customer experience. At the end of the day, the main point of this integration is really to ensure that we are serving our customers well, and this is a key goal. So we want to improve customer satisfaction. We want to make sure that orders are delivered on time. So first impressions matter. With an integrated platform, the right teams always have up-to-date information on each order. So shipping is accurate and on time, plus automatic customer notifications keep everyone in the loop. So there's no situations where sales is sort of following up with operations saying, where's my order? There's real visibility across the entire organization in terms of where the orders are and when it will be delivered to customers. And these notifications can then be relayed back to customers as well, giving them full updates on where their orders are. And we've seen this as a huge benefit when it comes to enhancing the overall customer experience. The second point is all the account teams have access to the same data, whether it's billing data or service ticket data as well. So sales, finance, customer support all see the same account data, whether it's billing history or a recent service ticket. That means no more bouncing of customers between departments for basic answers. It's a far more seamless experience that drives loyalty and repeat business. So let's move on to the improved financial management aspect of it. Finance teams are always trying to improve the lead to cash efficiency. When you integrate your CRM with your ERP, your sales pipeline flows directly into invoicing. So deals in the closed won state become invoices in a matter of clicks, not days. That shortens the lead to cash cycle and gets revenue in the door faster. And this can mean real money when you talk about, several days between closing orders in a CRM and re-entering that in an ERP. That can lead to very serious cash flow issues. So this is a top benefit for most finance teams to really improve their billing cycles. And we've seen various optimizations, even cutting down that billing cycle by 50% sometimes. Now, not only is the speed important when it comes to billing, but there is also the aspect about errors. We've found many organizations struggling with, because of manual data entry, there are a number of different errors related to wrong amounts and what have you. So automation also cuts manual entry mistakes by half, potentially saving thousands of dollars a year in rework and customer credits. So with sync data, you can trust your pricing and your discounting to be accurate every time. We hear this with organizations all the time, where there's a disconnect between sales and finance, where there is unnecessary discounting that happens. You can have price lists depending on the type of customer you have, and we hear a lot of this happening where sales and the order processing team is not aligned, and there are the wrong price lists have been applied, and that results in a huge losses because the wrong pricing was applied to certain orders and certain customers. And so there's a huge potential and savings in being able to cut billing errors by almost half, if not more. We talked about faster cash flow, because you're able to cut the invoice processing time from days to hours. So an integrated invoice process transforms what used to be a multi-day ordeal into a same-day task. And when month end arrives, you'll see a streamlined close process because your revenue numbers are already aligned. We know that this is a huge activity for most finance teams, where month end close can be a real challenge in following up with salespeople and reconciling payments. And so there is a huge benefit that we've seen when it comes to month end close, significantly optimizing the productivity of finance teams. So less time chasing down missing figures means more time analyzing results at the end of the day. Now, if you're a business that does a lot of recurring revenue, this could also result in a lot of benefits and savings. If you offer subscriptions or service contracts, automated renewals will ensure that nothing falls through the cracks. That steady stream of recurring revenue can scale significantly once billing is automated and no longer reliant on someone manually checking expiry dates or doing the renewals on a manual basis. So we see a number of different optimizations and benefits from a financial management standpoint as well. Moving on to the last benefit around the operations efficiency. So this is again bringing the sales team and your operations teams on the same page, right? We've seen a number of situations where sales folks don't have accurate views of inventory and end up, either overselling a product that doesn't exist in inventory, which then results in a lot of back order and order cancellations. So having real-time inventory data into your sales system drastically reduces back orders and stockouts. So, imagine a situation where a sales rep sees exactly what's on the shelf as they quote a customer. Fewer surprises means more on-time deliveries and better customer satisfaction at the end of the day. So we see this as a very real benefit, that organizations are able to reduce the number of stockouts, and again, this at the end of the day only helps to fulfill orders in a much better way and enhance the customer experience. This is true also if you are a manufacturing entity, we've seen a lot of benefits in aligning sales order data with how manufacturing production runs happen. Um, so one of the biggest benefits is how it streamlines production. When your sales forecasts feed directly into your manufacturing schedules, you're creating production runs based on real-time demand rather than a lot of guesswork. So this translates into less overproduction and few leftover material sitting idle on the shop floor. So not only do you save on raw material costs, but you also cut down on waste and storage requirements. So like I said, there are a number of different benefits of these integrations that we are seeing. There's a whole lot more, but these are some of the real world use cases that we are helping customers with, and that they are able to see in terms of staff productivity and real impact to their business. Let's move on. One of the other things that I touched on was really around the improved reporting and insights. So at the end of the day, all of this information will result in better reporting and analytics. We see organizations struggling with disconnected systems, and so there's a lot of data manipulation that they have to do in order to get a real visibility of the entire organization. And so without connecting these systems, it's a very tedious process to get some of these reporting and insights. And so with this integration, we've helped organizations use a number of different tools within the Microsoft stack, such as Microsoft Power BI and what have you, to help with forecasting or any financial analysis, for example. So a number of different use cases there that can help optimize overall reporting and analytics. So we've spent a lot of time talking about the various benefits and the real use cases, and so I hope that resonated. So let's talk a little bit about Microsoft's approach to an integrated platform. I thought it would be important to highlight why Microsoft's approach to building integrations between these platforms delivers value. One of the key points, first up, is the Microsoft Dataverse. This is essentially, you can call it the central nervous system of your data across all Dynamics 365 apps. Instead of having separate silos, everything, customers, products, orders live in a common framework now, which greatly simplifies data sharing. So with one consistent data layer, you reduce complexities, errors, and maintenance overhead. That's cost savings and risk mitigation right out of the gate. So Microsoft Dataverse is an underlying data platform that brings Business Central as well as all of the Dynamics 365 sales, field service, and the other applications all in one database layer, which really reduces the cost and complexity of building these integrations together. So this is a very key point, and one of the differentiating factors in terms of how Microsoft approaches integrations. We know integrations can be quite anxiety inducing at times, and so the Dataverse is solving this problem in a big way. The second thing is the seamless integration with Microsoft apps. So, one of the key things to consider here is how Dynamics 365 ties right into Outlook, Teams, Excel, and other Microsoft 365 tools. Your sales representatives can update CRM records now from within their email, or run real-time analytics in Excel without having to jump between applications. So this seamless integration speeds up workflows, improves user adoption, and helps cut down on training costs as well. So if you're using Microsoft 365 apps on a day-to-day basis, the level of training and change management and user adoption becomes so much higher, because these are very consistent user experiences and tools that folks are using on a day-to-day basis, and so much more easier to to train users and get them to use this integration. The next approach to integration is using the Power Platform. So Microsoft, on the one side, Microsoft has already developed an inbuilt connector between Business Central and Dynamics 365 Sales, which covers most of the most important integration and data exchange points. But for customers who need a little bit more nuanced and more integration points, Power Platform is another very good choice. So with tools like Power Automate, you can build automated workflows from sending invoice reminders to triggering approval processes without any heavy coding. So the Power Platform is essentially Microsoft's low code, no code tool to develop certain integrations without having to build anything from scratch, really. And things like a tool like Power Apps lets you create custom business apps that connect to your data. And of course, Power BI provides real-time analytics and dashboards. So all of this is done with a low-code approach, which lowers IT costs and boosts your agility in terms of the type of integration and how much data can be exchanged between some of these systems. Furthermore, I've touched on this a little bit, the end-to-end cloud ecosystem. So this is one of the key differentiating factors with Microsoft's approach to an integrated platform is really everything exists in one cloud ecosystem. So Microsoft's cloud-first strategy ties it all together on Azure, your CRM, your ERP, your productivity tools, and even all of the AI services currently being developed live in a single secure ecosystem. This really simplifies everything from an identity management perspective to compliance and upgrades, making it so much more easier to do things like upgrade. We don't even call it upgrades anymore. It's really updates at this time. So when all parts of your business run on a unified platform, you can cut down on a lot of third-party dependencies and the complexity of patchwork integrations, which can be a nightmare for most organizations. Furthermore, one of the other differentiating factors of Microsoft's approach to integrating these systems is through a partner ecosystem for for very industry specific needs or very niche integration scenarios. There's likely a potentially a number of third-party connectors that are available, and so that's also an approach depending on if you have very specific industry needs and scenarios. That's also a good approach. So Microsoft has one of the largest partner ecosystem in the world, and so you have a lot of partners developing solutions in these cases that you can then leverage. One of the last integration mechanisms and approaches is through APIs. So Business Central does offer a very rich set of APIs that you can use to extend or customize the solution as needed. If in case the native connectors may not be enough in some scenarios, APIs let you integrate with virtually any third-party system or custom application. So that flexibility will protect your investment by allowing your solution to grow with your business if in case you have very specific needs and need to build an integration with the APIs. So as you can see, there is a variety of integration mechanisms. So there's a lot of flexibility and options in terms of how you build this integration. A lot of it really depends on your organization's very specific needs and what you're trying to do. We'll talk about some best practices in a little bit, but what we normally guide organizations is really to go with the out-of-the-box connector that's available with Business Central and Dynamics 365 Sales through the Microsoft Dataverse. In most scenarios, that covers a lot of what organizations expect in terms of integration and data points. But there is a lot of flexibility. If the out-of-the-box connector doesn't work, then there are a number of different ways, as we've just discussed. So at the end of the day, this approach delivers a number of different benefits. It reduces the complexity of integration, which we know that can be quite a quite a nightmare and can be quite a disaster if not done properly. It reduces the risk, the cost. It also ensures data consistency. This is a very key point, given that the data for the dataverse is the underlying database layer, so to speak. This ensures that all of the data is consistent between all of the systems, and we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. So a number of different options when it comes to integrations. We'll move on from that. So let's talk a little bit about best practices. I thought, we do these integrations with organizations all the time, and so we're bringing you some insights in terms of, how to leverage these integrations and the options you have, and maybe even some do's and don'ts. So the very first point I mentioned, you should always start with Microsoft's built-in connectors that are out-of-the-box solutions. They are designed to handle 80 to 90% of standard scenarios with minimal setup. We often encourage organizations to resist the urge to over-customize every field or workflow on day one. Custom code can be quite expensive to maintain and to maintain as well. So, and like I said, a lot of the out-of-the-box integrations are pretty powerful, and comprise most of the data points that most organizations need. Let's talk a little bit about data governance and synchronization frequency, because this is one of the areas where we feel there's a lot of challenges in maintaining consistency between data. So one of the things is identifying critical fields. You must always focus on the must-have data. Things like the most important one, customer IDs, key product info, billing details. We always want to keep it simple and relevant. So very important to identify those critical fields instead of trying to sync every possible field. This causes a lot of clutter and has an impact on the performance and increases sync times as well. The other point is finding the right integration mechanism. I sort of touched on it a little bit, but it's important to use native connectors where possible, but you can consider options around Power Automate or other tools when your specific integration requirements are quite complex, instead of having to rely on manual exports or spreadsheets that is prone to error and a lot of wasted effort as well if you have to enter data again and what have you. So the other important aspect when it comes to these integrations is defining ownership. So, which system is the source of truth. So you need to decide early which system manages each data set. If CRM owns leads, then ERP shouldn't override that info and vice versa. So this is really important not to leave this ambiguous. If two systems fight over data control, then that can create duplicates and override important records. And so this is a key point, and this is what the Microsoft Dataverse is really meant to do. This is what Microsoft's already thought about when it comes to data consistency and sort of building those links between the data. This is already done for you, so that you don't have to think about how you're going to reduce the risk when it comes to duplications and what have you. One of the other areas that is important is creating the right mappings between Business Central data and the CRM data. So establishing naming conventions. So, making sure you've agreed on consistent IDs, product codes, naming standards across both systems to avoid those mismatches. You shouldn't allow for multiple naming formats. This can create confusion and add a lot of complexity to your data mapping. One of the other key areas is sync frequency and direction. We know we can appreciate the need to have real-time data most of the time, but that does usually come at a cost. And so setting a schedule that balances real-time needs with performance considerations is an important aspect. So you can use unidirectional sync where possible to reduce complexity. Unless true bidirectional data is crucial, then that can be done. So don't default to real-time sync for everything. This can at times slow down your system if it's not truly necessary. But it can be done if it is necessary with some optimizations and what have you. But sync frequency is an important consideration without always relying on real-time sync. The other thing is conflict resolution rules. There will always be situations where some data doesn't sync properly or there is some conflict, and Microsoft has built in exception management within these integrations to show users these conflicts and can be resolved. So it's essentially defining which systems wins, so to speak, if data is changed in both places at once, and keep a clear decision tree to handle these conflicts automatically. We shouldn't let teams sort of override certain systems if those rules are not in place. So let's continue with some of these best practices. When you talk about security, compliance, and role-based access, this is a super important area where it is very important to assign each user minimum permissions needed to perform their job. This limits accidental data tampering and bolsters security. And obviously with Microsoft and Azure Active Directory, this is no longer a concern. You can adopt single sign-on to centralize identity and make user management easier. So this again sort of brings together the point of the Microsoft platform and the ecosystem, and Microsoft managing sort of the end-to-end integration, ensuring their security and compliance as well. One of the other highly recommended practices that we recommend is using testing and staging environments for new integration. You can get sandbox or staging environments to ensure your testing mappings and workflows before going live. So catching errors saves time and lots of headaches. So this is almost table stakes now. You need to ensure you have some staging environments where you're testing things before moving them to production. We touched on performance a little bit. Integrate only what is needed. So I won't re-emphasize this point, but don't overload your integration with every custom field. Performance will suffer, and troubleshooting does become a little tougher. There are situations where this is possible, but this is generally a best practice. The very last point I wanted to highlight around this area is training end users and communicating changes is a super critical area that often is taken for granted. So, you must offer hands-on training sessions and clear documentation showing each team how the integration helps them in daily tasks. We shouldn't just assume that people will figure it out. So lack of guidance leads to user frustration and inconsistent data entry as well. So this is something that we do all the time as an implementation partner. Is we include a lot of time for training end users as well as communicating some of these changes. I wanted to highlight a quick slide about the Microsoft ecosystem. So one of the key differentiating factors is really the depth and breadth of all the Microsoft applications that are available in the Microsoft cloud ecosystem. We are seeing a lot of customers really being able to light up these applications as their businesses grow and organizations scale, whether that's through the Dynamics 365 applications or even the Power Platform integrated with the rest of the Microsoft 365 solution. This has a lot of potential to streamline a lot of different areas within your organization and give you that advanced visibility across the business. So this is pretty hard to find today in the ecosystem, where there is one single cloud ecosystem that delivers all of these capabilities. So we wanted to cover a lot of the benefits today, as well as share some best practices with you. There are a couple of additional resources that I've put together here that you can access that goes a little bit deeper into how this integration happens and some of the technical aspects on it. We probably will have a separate webinar where we can dive a little bit deeper into how the integration happens and give you some sort of a technical coverage of how we can make the integration happen. But I thought I'll put this up in case you're interested to look at some of the technical aspects. And that was pretty much the very last slide as far as this webinar goes. If you're interested, you can always contact us at Onco. We're a Microsoft partner and have been in business for over 35 years now. And so we do a number of implementations around Business Central as well as the rest of the Dynamics 365 applications. So please feel free to reach out. This is my contact detail, alfred.selvaraja@oncobusiness.com. Please feel free to reach out, and we're always happy to help and see how we can support you in your integration and the rest of your Microsoft Dynamics implementations as well. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining today. Like Adam mentioned, if there are any questions, please feel free to enter them, and I'll be sure to get back to you. But otherwise, thank you so much for taking the time today to join this webinar, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much.